couple book talks, just so folks can know that Jason Reynolds' new book, Look Both Ways, came out last week. It is really written for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for teachers. Every chapter is a different story of a kid walking to or from school. So the chapters stand alone. And when he talks about the book, he talked about how important it was to have texts that could lure kids into reading. So I read about 6 of them. The readability is very high interest. The content is, Jason Reynolds has a smidge, you need to pre-read it. But 4th, 5th, 6th grade kids, this is a just right book. And I'm going to compliment that. How many folks read the crossover or rebound by Kwame Alexander? Is that ringing a bell to folks? When the Newberry a couple years ago, the graphic novel version of the crossover came out this fall. So this is one of the best-selling, books of all time. Kwame's new book for lower grades is How to Read a Book. Kwame Alexander is also doing a regular stint once a month on NPR on the importance of poetry in kids' lives. So if you Google his name and put in NPR, you'll see that beautiful combination of humor and seriousness, and almost always there's a takeaway for educators, something that he does with his NPR co-host that you can walk away and try. If you're an Instagram person, people who like Instagram, so follow Melissa Sweet on Instagram. She's a flipping rock star Instagrammer as well, the illustrator of this book. It's gorgeous. So I'll leave those books there so that when we have work time, you have the chance to dig in. And then if you are friends with me on any social media, you know How to Be a Lion is one of my top books. I really love and care about that SEL space. But I have and I Can Only Draw Worms is up there. If you're in the how-to space in kinder first or second, you might want to dig into that book. But very quickly, this book called Small World is becoming one of my top texts of the year this year. I've read it in pre-K classrooms with 3s and 4s in Chicago, where I do a big project bringing culturally responsive teaching and diverse books to 26 sites inside Chicago's YMCA sites, their Head Starts. And I read it in 8th grade and had the chance to put this text in front of so many kids that all seem to respond to it in different, amazing ways. So, highly recommend Small World, because if you believe in this kind of teaching and learning, you know that texts are the fuel for workshop instruction, and we really do need to constantly be thinking, what are your kids loving right now? What's in the library right now? Oh, I saw this book review. I was over paragraphs and saw this. My grandkid had this book. It was amazing. So we don't need to be buying all of them. That's not what I tell my husband. But it does help to be really powerful consumers of book reviews, of our libraries, trading with each other, of your school libraries here, which are just places of incredible resource, which is really powerful. So this bin, don't let the crossover fool you. I'm a huge fan of CC Bell's new, if you love Elephant and Piggy, you should, and your kids love Elephant and Piggy, you should read the CC Bell's Robot and Rabbit books that have come out this year as well. And it is a series already. So, there we go. I'm Lisa Vahey. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm in from Cleveland. I'm a huge advocate for reading and writing workshop, balanced literacy, quit bio, went to Lesley College, had Irene Fountas, got started with the Literacy Collaborative way back in the day. I know that sun is, it's like, how can we complain about the sun? If you want to slide your table back 6 inches, and then in an hour you'll slide it back, you'll slide it, forward 6 inches. I know, you need your partner to shade you, right? We will allow the wearing of hats in this session. So I started my career in Cambridge and got to work in tons of literacy collaborative schools before there really was literacy collaborative, and grew up in the Fountas and Pinnell tradition. I taught in the Chicago Public Schools, and my school was part of Literacy Collaborative there. So when people are like, this work is hard, guided reading is hard, writing workshop is hard, I'm like, yeah, you should try it with 42 kids. Then it's really, really hard. And I think when I first met you guys, I thought my class picture from those years. I was super lucky, convinced my principal to let me loop from first to second grade, so at least I knew the kids over time, which made it easier. But this is hard, important, philosophical work that I believe in. And I believe all kids need access to really incredible interactive read aloud. They should read and write for meaningful purposes, that they need to spend time with grade level text and instructional level text. There should be joy in everything that we do around literacy. And man, that is hard, hard, hard work. So filling ourselves up every so often, whether it's granola bars or books or good handouts, matters a ton. So after Chicago, I ran a big nonprofit that supported 1,600 first and second year teachers in the Chicago Public Schools with good induction coaching. So supporting beginning teachers. Interesting time to be an advocate for the Chicago Public Schools, because we're on day 2 of a strike today. So living in that space is, this is political work, as well as important literacy work, right? So we can wear all these hats, all these lenses that we have to look through to do this work well. If we care about it, we want to make a difference in our own lives, be really fulfilled in the work we're doing, and make a difference in kids' lives. So this is hard, complicated stuff. Thank goodness for the granola bars to fuel us. So today we are so I transitioned out of leading that work, and I consult all over the United States. I still do a ton of work in Chicago. I live in Cleveland, and I do a lot of work in the Cleveland Public Schools. I actually work intensely in about 6 schools now, improving literacy instruction, doing 12, 13, 14 days a year in those schools to help with coaching, instructional coaching. So gathering up lots of video as well. Okay, I'm feeling really bad about the sun, but it's going to move all morning, right? Right? That's how science works for people who are science people. I don't know if you want to put your tables on a diagonal, if that helps at all, or move to the front table so you're in the shade. People start to get annoyed. We can move some chairs over there too. So we'll figure it out as the morning moves through and the sun moves through. Yes, exactly. It's like you're in the spotlight, and you'll soon be in the shade. So today's work is going to take us into we're going to do writing, because that's the work that's important, that we are modeling what it means to lead writerly lives. So we'll carve out a little bit of time to do that work. I'm going to do a very, very quick review. Crystal and I read through all the exit tickets, lots of good questions about conferring and conferring tools and resources. Then we're going to actually do a dive. I see lots of people have their units with them, getting the chance to do some reading, both in our packet and in the resources in the units themselves, about what it means to sit down with a writer and ask them, what are you working on? And then we're actually going to look at some student work together we're actually going to use the rubric instead of the checklist, so folks can build up their muscle and their confidence in that and practice a couple of coaching points. And then we'll do a quick online exit survey. Super great getting paper exit surveys, and Crystal and I were cursing ourselves for, why the heck do we do paper exit surveys? Because it's a lot of typing and organizing after, so we'll do electronic. As always, LV Consultants for Mount Vernon, every handout ever is there. So if you go to that link and you're like, oh, I want to see those videos of Lisa teaching at East again, because I remember there being something when she was doing that challenging American Revolution mini lesson. Then you can go in and see those videos of Lisa teaching in Mount Vernon, if it's at all helpful, as well as handouts if you missed a session, or you're like, where is that resource, where is that rubric? So everything is always there, and that address is at the bottom of page 2. So if you flip your document over, you'll see the exit ticket address and the handout address there as well. So, outcomes, build professional community. I'm leaving, you're staying, so we always want to be bonding with each other, deepening our work and our conversations, especially since we have the opportunity to sort of cluster up some kinder folks or some third grade folks and have that work. We're going to deepen our knowledge of the structure of writing workshop. I think I could wake many of you up and have you tell me mini lesson, work time, share time, but we're really going to dig into the parts of a conference today, so you'll add that to your mini lesson repertoire. You already know those 4 parts, so we're digging in, we're going deeper. We're going to think and figure out how we can start building our practices around conferring. So that's why we're going to have a go at some of the conferring language, and we're going to keep gathering questions. So those exit tickets are important. That's the fuel, along with books, that drives our PD. So when you put it in your exit ticket, lots of exit tickets last time were like, what about grammar? So when we get to independent work time, I brought lots of the grammar stuff with me, including the awesome Jeff Anderson stuff. So your feedback helps drive this work, so we want to capture that in exit tickets. So, but first we're going to write. Has anyone ever heard of this I Believe segment on NPR or anywhere else? Can you describe it briefly?
Yeah, I mean, they just ask individuals to give a very brief statement about their beliefs about another.
Yeah, so the hot links are here. So this is it was a regular feature on NPR for like 40 years. Now, I don't know how many people listen to StoryCorps on Friday mornings. We hear StoryCorps, so, which is an interview structure. Hey, if you ever Google me in StoryCorps, I've been on it. So, fun small fact about me. This feature is really an essay that someone reads, digging into this I believe. So I've got 3 resources there for folks. NPR warehouses lots of the old This I Believe essays that they've had on, so if you click on that link, you'll find it. This I Believe actually has a website, thisibelieve.org, where every essay, including lots and lots of the, not just audio, but the transcript of the This I Believe sessions live. And then Jen Gonzalez, who runs one of the best education blogs, Cult of Pedagogy, actually wrote This I Believe lesson plans, which are just awesome. It's sort of a great thing to do at the beginning and end of the year. It's an awesome thing to do with parents, to frame that, tell me about your kid, and I'm going to use this I Believe format for you, so you can just tell me a little bit about your kid, about what you believe about them. So Jen has some great tools and resources for us. And you have these dreaded 10 lines at the top of our handout, right? So this is how This I Believe essays usually go. You pick something that you believe in deeply, and you write a brief essay on it. So one of my favorites is about a little girl who believes in the Beatles. She believes in great music and great lyrics and singing in the car with her family, so she believes in the Beatles. As educators, you can tell what I believe in. The power of a great book to change kids' lives, right? I believe that the right books in the right kid's hand at the right time can change outcomes for kids. Some of you might believe in paper-made pens. Like, that's the most important thing. See, I see a few swirling in hands that, like, having a good pen makes a huge difference. Others of you who have teenagers might believe in curfews, or the Buckeyes, or sunrise, or bookstores, or the power of good foundation to hide your wrinkles. Like, you pick something that matters to you, and we're gonna write about 5 sentences about it. This I believe. So it's not, not grading it. It should be personal, but they won't be private, because we are gonna share them, right? So they can be very, very personal to you. But it shouldn't be about anything that you wouldn't want a colleague to know about. We're not reading them on the mic. We're not having an open mic activity with this. You'll only be reading it we're going to do real triads and then get into groups of 6. But we're going to write for about 4 minutes. So it gives you time to just dig in, reflect for a smidge. Does everybody have the handout from over at the sign-in table? Okay, I'm going to set my timer for 4 minutes. We'll see if we want to go 1 more minute after that. But everyone should have a go. And this is what we call it in workshop. We're just having a go at a This I Believe essay. Now, to sort of keep our energy and our momentum high, and to get some people out of the sun and other people into the sun, I'm going to ask everybody to stand up. We're going to get in a triad. You're You're going to share your essay with 2 other people, and we're going to stay in those triads just for a minute or 2 when folks are done. I'm going to give us about 3 minutes to do that, so we want to transition quickly, and then we'll have about 45 seconds per person. So triad up, find 3 people that you're not sitting with, pull away from the table so you can find each other.
You can always edit out. This is the same one I use.
So let me stop us for a minute and bring us back together for a quick reflection. Let me just ask, if in the course of that share, did anyone share any feedback with the person who shared to help them improve their writing? Did anyone say, you know, I feel like your first sentence didn't really bring me in as a reader. I'm wondering if you could improve your opening a bit for me. Or, your language doesn't feel very descriptive. I'm wondering if you could add some more details here so that I could see what it's like, because you believe in Reese's peanut butter cups, but I've never had one before, so I want to know more about that. Right? So none of us gave each other feedback naturally during our share. That didn't happen for any of the groups, right? And there's a few reasons why that might be. Why do we naturally give each other feedback? Why did that happen? Why do you think? We're adults, yeah? And I'm always giving people feedback as an adult. I give my husband feedback at least 10 times a day. That's what you're right. That's what you're supposed to do. Okay, so I want you to say more about that. Then I'll come over. Say more, like, what? Because we're adults. What? Dig a little bit deeper. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to just say it's hard to criticize each other, right? So I'm acknowledging that for many of us, feedback equals criticism. Feedback isn't a feel-good experience. Feedback is, you didn't do a good job, okay? So if we're going to do conferring well, we might have to think about the biases we ourselves are bringing about the purpose and the feeling around feedback. Yep, another suggestion.
They were personal.
Yeah, say it again.
They were personal, so it's hard to, it's their personal opinion, and it's kind of hard to do feedback.
Separating out, if most of you have just finished Unit 1 or now in Unit 2, that first unit for many of us, is personal narrative. Small moment. It's your small moment, right? How can I possibly have an opinion on your small moment? So now, we're recognizing that to give writerly feedback, whether it's to 5-year-olds or to 12-year-olds, we have to be really careful about the work we're doing to support joy and energy and ownership over the content, but also be able to improve the writing. So when Patricia Polacco came up with the story for Thank You, Mr. Falker, I'm sure her editor was like, oh my God, Patricia, another emotional book centered on your grandparents? Like, I'm not sure we can go there again, right? And that idea that she would come up with content that mattered so much to her and then craft paragraph after paragraph, dialogue, where we as teachers almost get teary-eyed when we get to that page where Mr. Falker says, Tricia, you have fooled many, many teachers. And we're like, oh God, how did she know that? So the seeds of our stories, which are so very personal, matter, And so does improving the craft of our writing. And if we can actually get to joy of caring about the seeds of our stories for the essays that we write, then we'll really be working in a dynamic place for students. Our ability to lean in and say, your work as a writer matters, whether you're writing a personal narrative or you're writing an extended response essay across 2 passages where we're asking you to use text evidence. To really build up the sense of like, every time you write, it matters in here because your voice is powerful and engaging and you have the skills that you need in order to build up that quality of your writing. So I just want to name, we have luggage around conferring. We don't think of feedback as being a gift. And we're going to have to shift some of that. And it could even be that the current culture of our classroom doesn't feel like feedback is a gift. So if we are going to have partner share and get with a friend, and I heard lots of moaning and groaning when I was like, your writing can be personal but not private because you're going to share it, and people were like, I don't want to share my writing. We have to make some shifts in the work that we're doing in order to support that work in our rooms, because our disposition matters tremendously. It truly does. So give your partner a quick elbow bump and really authentically say, thank you for sharing with me, and head back to your seat. This curriculum is thick with kids sharing and taking chances in their writing. This curriculum assumes that writers have to take risks to get better. It's not formulaic, it's developmental. Those are 2 different approaches to the teaching of writing, and your district is sort of systemically saying, we are going to move kids together, move kids forward with a developmental lens on writing. The first book that the district bought around this was the Pathways book, before they even got the curriculum into people's hands. You had those rubrics and checklists that looked at kids' growth over time and looked at how skills across those 9 criteria grow. So this is different work than maybe how some of us were taught writing, or how you might have taught writing in the past. So this is change work. So we're really having to change how we approach this work, how we lean in, how we set up classrooms, the language that we use, which is why the curriculum is super bossy about language. And that can feel really supportive and really like a pain in the butt at the same time. So we're thinking about all of those things as we move in. So Writing Workshop has 3 parts: a mini lesson, work time, share time. Kids should know that now. Whenever we're in a classroom and Writing Workshop is going on, we should be able to say, kid, what part of workshop are you in right now? And kids should know, we get together at the rug, our teacher's like, hey, we've been working on blah, blah, blah. Today I'm going to teach you how to do yada, yada, yada. Watch me do yada, yada, yada. Now you try doing yada, yada, yada. Now go forth and do yada, yada, yada. Kids should know the structure of a mini lesson. Come to the rug. It is my time to talk. I'm not going to take a comment from everyone about what you're thinking. You'll do a couple turn and talks, but you're watching me. Here is today's teaching point. And that language should come right. When you watch videos of Crystal or me or on the Vimeo site, many of us are holding the units in our lap while we teach. That teaching point language is so crucial. We want to get that crystal clear. Then kids go to work time, where we confer, we pull small groups, and kids talk and write and use staplers and tape and get booklets out. And hopefully they're not sharpening their pencil, but they might need a new pencil. And they're illustrating, and they're writing, and they're writing, and they're writing, and they're writing. And today when we get into our professional reading time, we'll have the opportunity to see what does the team at Teachers College give us to help us make sure that writing time is queued up really powerfully. Then we head into the share. Celebrate, push and praise, engage in writerly feedback. You guys have seen me say this before. In workshop, the share is not this. Okay, Mark, come on up and share. And everyone else is like, oh, Mark, you always choose him. You know, that's not what share time looks like. Put away the popsicle sticks. Kids, now that it's October, should be in partners, and there should be an anchor chart in your classroom that says partner A and partner B. And kids should be like, hey, get with your partner and share. You were working on that piece about going to Kings Island this summer. I can't wait to see the details that you've added, right? Kids are in sustained relationship with other writers, not just us. If we're the only person looking at their writing, then we're exhausted. They have to be in partnerships. And kinder and first people, I know your kids aren't giving each other writerly feedback that maybe necessarily improves their writing, but please keep doing it so that when they get to second and third grade, the habit of giving each other writerly feedback is solidified and we get all the payoff of that. So you have to keep the faith for us, kinder and first, so that as those kids get older, they're like, of course you share your writing every day with someone. And of course someone's going to point to something and say, this part didn't feel clear. This part needs a transition word. You know what? You don't have your periods in the right place. Or end periods, right? So kids have to be doing that work now so that as they get older and older, they are able to get feedback from multiple places and they don't end up like us. You know, really thinking that feedback is criticism, or feedback is hard, or feedback is personal, not meant to help you grow. So, that's the structure of workshop. Mini lesson, work time, share time. Every unit is set up that way. There isn't like, except on Thursdays when we have blah, 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 then we don't do share. You know, if your time is cut short, then you really still want to do all three pieces, and you figure out a way not to blow off share every day, but to use a timer and tighten up your mini lesson so you get 3 more minutes back and 2 minutes from work time, allowing you to get that share. We've talked so much in this district about the on-demand piece. The idea that through the unit, kids are doing process writing. That's awesome. How many people wrote their own wedding vows, right? You didn't do that as an on-demand activity. Hey, I'm going to lock you in this hotel room, and in 1 hour you need to be done with your vows. No, that's process writing. The obituary for your grandma. You know, the letter you tucked under your kid's pillow when they went off to college. Those are all process writings. But in America, we also have to be able to do on-demand writing. Put your butt in a seat and write for 40 minutes, and I'm sorry that you don't love the topic, but it's one of the things that we also do. And we want to get good at both of those muscles. I'm going to cook an amazing dinner. I'm going to go to the grocery store at 8 o'clock and then the farmer's market. Then at noon, I'm going to start my food prep, and it's going to be this incredible Julia Child menu for friends with Crystal. So I'm going to do that beautiful processed cooking, and then I'm going to do on-demand cooking. Open the fridge. We have a pepper. We have some kielbasa. There's a half thing of applesauce. There's got to be noodles. Let me make that into a meal. I got 20 minutes to make a dinner. Being able to do process work and on-demand work is part of what it means, and your kids should know that. Sometimes you have lots of days and feedback and input, and sometimes you put your bottom in a chair and your topic comes up and you just write like crazy. Doing everything you know. You know this language from the on-demand prompts. Show me everything you know how to do as a writer. You're going to try and bring all that to bear right now. Kids should know there's lots of ways that we write. There are genres and there's styles and there's the kind of writing that we have to do. So we've got this really powerful tool that sort of led some of the work in your district saying, we want to look at kids' writing at the beginning of the unit, and it can't go in, it's not for a grade, it's to inform our teaching. And then at the end of the unit, we want to see both what they did with their process pieces and what they do for that end of unit on-demand piece. And you know, they're two different skills. Totally two different skills. And so we want to look at both of them. We want to help kids become good at both of those things. So, to get good at both of those things, we lean in and talk with kids about their work that they're doing. And if you've spent any time in, watching the videos or reading the curriculum, we've spent the beginning part of our work together getting good at mini lessons. Really gathering the kids at the rug, admitting that we're a little bossy, bringing mentor texts that they love, taking fabulous anchor charts, right? Really letting kids know that mini lesson is going to be short and you'll get to practice something, and then sending them off from the rug with real clarity about what they're going to do. And as we grow and deepen our practice, conferring is often the next thing that we want to get good at. So now the kids are writing, when I'm walking around the room, how am I doing more than just making sure everyone's on task? And how am I doing more than just working with the struggling writers? And how am I ensuring that kids don't line up because they need me in order to write? How am I disrupting that practice? I'm sorry, 4th and 5th grade teachers, your kids might have been doing that for years. Like, oh, I know a good way to get out of writing. I'll fuss around for 3 minutes. I'll wait till the line gets long, and then I'll go to that end of the line. I'll be quiet and get in line, and I won't have to write anything today. Like, that's the premise of Thank You, Mr. Falker. That Tricia figured out how to fake read for years. And we have kids that have also figured out how to fake write. We want to disrupt that. So, the process of a conference is to research, decide, complement, spread the joy, teach the kids something for 2 minutes, and then end with a link. You are teaching the writer. You're not correcting the writing when you lean in for a conference. You're thinking about, what does this writer need? There's no red pen. There's no circling in a conference. There's no handwriting practice. Go back and rewrite this. This is different than that. So, I'm going to do a smidge on record keeping, and then we're going to go to some professional reading. So one of the other pieces that makes this important is that you don't hold all that info in your head. So what does it look like to keep records during a conference? Some of us have binders, some of us have clipboards, and some of us have laptops in front of us when we do this. So this teacher decided to put stuff on the left, the criteria on the left-hand side, organizing by table, created a mastery code. So T, I taught it, 0, they needed, X, I saw evidence, double X, I saw more evidence. The kids were moving through this criteria on her left-hand side. Some people like a binder. I used to love my binder, and now I'm just like, I can't believe I used a binder. But it takes, everyone has to do what's right for them. There's a tab for every kid. Your Post-it notes go inside with the dates. So if I want to know how Mary Jones is doing, I go to Mary Jones's tab, and I can see all the times I've conferred with her. This, if you've watched me in any of the videos, is how I usually confer now. I put all the kids' names on a single piece of paper, and then I can see, oh my gosh, there's 3 kids I haven't gotten to yet, there's 1 kid I'm conferring with crazily. It allows, this is how I like to work, but this exact structure can also be done with Google as well. So if you love tech, you can create a Google form, you can have really general feedback, what are the highs, what did the child do well, what's my compliment, what's the feedback I gave? Or you can put the criteria right there and check off what coaching you did, what teaching you did. So there's all kinds of ways to record keep during conferring, to keep track of the feedback that you give your writers, so that you're like, wait, didn't I just tell you this last week? Or, holy cow, I just had 9 conferences on yesterday's mini lesson. I'm thinking that didn't go so well yesterday, right? So you're gathering data when you're conferring. This is qualitative data to help improve your teaching, figure out what you need to run small groups on, what you need to reteach, what your kids already get, so that you can blow off some mini lessons where you're like, whoa, these kids already know how to do X and Y. I don't need to do a mini lesson on that. It gives you data to help inform your teaching. And it's really beholden on us to stay organized around it. And in fact, sharing how we keep conferring notes is great content to share with each other. Everyone bring your conference form. Who's doing it electronically? Who's doing it with a binder? Who's using the Confer app? Who's got a piece of paper structure that they love? Who already put the criteria for Unit 2 on the left-hand side of a piece of paper? Can I get a copy of that, please? Right? This is one of the first things we want to do is build that kind of professional community where no one starts with a blank piece of paper. So I know that you're a Google Docs conferrer, and you know that I'm a binder conferrer, and we share the best of what's working with each other. And I might try using Google Docs on Unit 3 because you're not having to take 28 binders home with you and I am, right? So looking at the difference in learning from each other. But it's that structure, I'm going back a bit, that I want to spend a little bit of reading time on. So if you go into your handout, the very bottom of that page is that first page, is the rubric from the folks at Teachers College on conferring. So this is the quick start guide, the little new book that came out, and the folks at TC said, hey, we really want to articulate the pieces of practice that matter most of all. What does it look like to be a beginner, and what does it look like to move forward? And then if you hop ahead a few pages, there's a very quick professional read from that same book on conferring. And for those of you, how many folks are doing both reading and writing workshop now? So this text refers to both. The rubric assumes you're doing reading and writing. The reading, the little short 3.5-page read, assumes that you're doing both reading and writing. So I'm going to give us a few minutes of reading time, and I'm going to ask you to read pen in hand. If you want to, you have the electronic copy of this in the drive, but I want you to mark up the text while you read today. I want you to underline, circle, question mark, put hearts and X's next to things. And I am just to norm up getting our work going because we're going to transition to another reading time after the share. If folks can just flip down laptops and move away other work so that you can concentrate on reading for these 5 minutes, that would be awesome because many of us don't have other time in our lives when we're doing professional reading. So I want to try and hold this time sacred if we can. So you're reading the rubric and you're reading the short read. You're reading it pen in hand to figure out I'm doing this, yes, celebrations. And like, I had no idea, what does this sentence even mean? So you're reading it very proactively, thinking about your own practice. Perfect time.
Now I am going to have to sort of lean into the people that we're sitting with right now and share that insight and feedback. So what did you underline? What did you highlight? What did you star? Where was what you know about conferring reinforced for you? And where was there new information that you're like, I want to try this, or I want to understand this more deeply, or I want to learn more? And again, I'm just going to note that this reading looks at reading and writing conferences, both. We're focused today on writing, but if you go into the reading space, that's okay. I'm going to name one other thing as well. I'm going to ask you to try and sustain dialogue in that partnership or triad for about 6 minutes, which feels like, oh, that's nothing, will be done in a whippersnap. But I really want you to try and stay focused on talking about conferring for these 6 minutes in your partnerships. And as much as possible, let's try and be in groups of 2 so that there's enough talk going on at the table, okay? So about 6 minutes on conferring with a person and that's an elbow partner on either end. What did you know? What was reinforced? What was new? like when they're conferencing back and forth. When you're conferring, it's one kid. Kids are partnering? You mean when kids are in partnership? Yes. What most schools do that are really doing this well is that kids have an A column and a B column. Your cross person is like, if you're doing, what grade are you guys? I'm kindergarten. Okay, so if you're, so I was going to say, so there's a 5th grade writing about history unit. It's very hard. I think that westward expansion unit is really challenging. So when I organize my partners for that unit, I want to think really like this is not the personal narrative unit. So I want to really think how can kids help each other when I make those A and B partners. In kinder, at the beginning of the year, I would teach kids how to like the structure of doing it, and it doesn't really matter whether they're high and low. We're learning what the structure of working with a partner is like. Come January, you can then start to think, this unit is going to be really challenging for my kids. I'm going to organize this way, or this unit is going to be like really reinforcing. It's only 20 days long. I'm going to set up my partners that way. The recommendation is to work with a sustained partnership. Is actually know from day to day how's your story going. So you're not every time you're sitting down with someone new being like, what are you writing about? The familiarity, the systems, what grade are you? We're both kindergarten. Yeah, at 5th grade, that will help improve the practice. Kindergarten will help them figure out oh, I know you already. If you're working, with kinder, you're building those systems and structures and routines. You're thinking a little bit about, I have introverted kids, I have kids that never been to school, I have kids that talk a ton and don't listen very well. All of that will go into thinking about how you say partnerships. If you end up just working with the person next to you, you're not actually getting the most benefit out of it. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you guys. This is good stuff.
I want to clarify language around 3 different things. The first is that when you sit one-on-one with a kid, that is conferring. When kids sit with each other, that is partner work. So the kids aren't conferring with each other, the kids do partner work. It has some elements of conferring, but when I'm working with a writer or reader one-on-one, that's conferring. When I pull a small group of kids, those kids may have exactly the same level of, need exactly the same level of support. That's a small group, but I can also pull a group of kids that all needs to work on quotation marks, where one kid is a really strong writer, one kid's a medium writer, and one kid's a reluctant writer, but because he's doing a video game story, there's a lot of need for quotation marks in his story, right? So when you pull small groups, it can be around similar skill levels, and it can also be around similar needs. The small group work is dynamic. It's based on what you're seeing in your conferring notes, not based on necessarily on what you're, you don't put kids in a group for a unit. Yeah. Someone just asked, how often should you change partners? Once you're up and running, we were talking about kindergarten at the beginning of the year, kids are just some kids are learning how to talk to someone that's not their mom, and other kids are learning how to listen to someone that's not them, right? So at kinder, and again, this is why we appreciate building these systems and structures and routines and being committed to them, even if you don't see the payoff necessarily in your year. But once you get up and get that drumbeat going, kids will usually stay in partnerships for a unit so that you're actually digging deep into sustained partnerships. What lots of us do on that A-B chart, there's 2 things. To shake things up, kids are like, well, I'm getting sick of my partner. You might change partnerships on a bend. So we're moving into the next bend. We're going to shake it up, change up some partnerships, get some new insights and ideas, because that's what good writers do. If you read the inside front cover of almost any book, people will say, I'd like to thank the coffee club, that they gave me so much good feedback. Real writers are often in writing groups, and they go on retreats, and they get feedback from lots of other people. So teaching kids that that's what happens. Another great thing to do is sometimes when your partnerships are getting stale, but you're like, there's 6 days left, just to move partnerships into quads for a little bit and get into groups of 4, have a reading circle or writing circle, so that you just get different energy and momentum. A lot of the ideas that I share as we dig into this work come from being a part of the Facebook community. So there is a K-5 reading Facebook group and a K-5 writing Facebook group, and people will be like, my partnerships feel stale and there's only 6 days left, what should I do? And then people will be like, I would do this, I would do this, I would do that. It is a very positive, solutions-oriented group. It really lives the norms of like, if we believe we want to create real readers and writers, we want to be committed to doing this work, even though it's harder than lots of other curriculums, what does it look like to problem solve? Any other questions or wonderings that came up in the conferring space? Yeah?
Question about the partnering. How did you determine which students do it?
Yeah, so how do you set up that chart? I'll pop up when we go to our next professional reading time a quick visual of that AV partner chart for folks who haven't seen it before. So there's a couple ways to do it. At the beginning of the year, by day 3 or 4, that first Monday after starting school on Wednesday, if we're trying to start writing workshop early in the year, you're just using your gut instinct, and you might only do partners for 1 bend together. And at the beginning of the year, many of us think about like, I have a really difficult kid, who could be a good partner for him? I have a really shy girl, who could be a difficult partner for her? I have a kid who just lost a parent, who could be a really good partner for that kid. So we think about what makes safe partnerships. But eventually we want to get to brave partnerships where writers are actually helping each other. So as you pick up a unit, so I'll use 4th grade as an example, I really find the literary essay unit, like almost anyone can partner with anyone on that unit because it's just so fabulous. But I find the 4th grade American Revolution and the 5th grade Westward Expansion units really hard writing. And maybe it's because I struggle with being a great informational text writer. So I think more strategically about, I want to put, when I make my chart, I want to get all my low kids with a really good partner, I want to get my high kids pushing, but then when I make it, when I write it up, I'm going to make sure that I can do those quads really easily and almost like box the quads so that I have a nice differentiated, I have a nice mix of group, but even though the partnerships might feel more homogeneous for me for that unit, so that when I lean into a partnership, I'm not like, when I know it's hard for me, what can I do to make it easier? Oh, I know I'll make the partnerships work in a way that makes sense. I'm just going to name, by the time you get to middle school, when kids have been invested in creating reading and writing communities, lots of schools that are implementing systemically, so from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade, teachers in middle school let kids pick their own partners. So just pick a partner for this unit. We're about to shift gears. I want you to find someone who you're going to work well with. Remember, in our classrooms or in our schools, it doesn't have to be your best friend. It doesn't have to be someone at the same level as you. What you're committed to is we recognize that we can learn from anyone else in our classroom. We all have great feedback to give each other. Like, this is a mindset about how you create communities of readers and writers. Not just readers and writers, but communities of readers and writers. And that's why, when we were very first together, we watched that Lucy video, where she talked about what will happen with Common Core, as Michael Fullen says, will be the great ship Titanic. And, will it fall under its own weight? Well, in Ohio it did. What do you know? Very indicative of what's happened. But then Lucy goes on to say, I don't want you to teach writing this way because of Common Core. I want you to teach it because writing is one of the best ways to analyze and synthesize and share information, because businesses have websites and blogs, because you can get the whole Library of Congress on your phone in a heartbeat. So being able to read and synthesize information to share your thinking, it's one of the most important skills that kids can have now. And so that's why I want you to be embracing this work. And when you really believe that, then you're just like, oh yeah, if I overmanage this by, creating every single partnership, then I'm not allowing space for that independence to grow. So great question. The answer is lots of ways. And as we head into our next professional reading, you'll get insight from Teachers College that will reiterate some of these same things.
Whether we partner with low kids together, or do we do a high-low partnership and frustrate the high?
If you're really creating a community, you won't frustrate the high kids, because the truth of the matter is, low writers can give kick-ass feedback, excuse my French. Like, just because I am not a great writer, but trust me, I can review books. I can tell someone else whether their writing is good or bad, even though I'm not a published writer. So my advice is just tell the kids, our next unit has 3 bends, and we're going to do 3 sets of partnerships, and I'm going to really be paying attention to how our partnerships work. So I want to do a quick review of how we treat each other in this classroom and why partners matter, and then just pay attention to how it works. If your high kids can't get feedback from the low kids because they don't think they're smart, that's like an SEL thing to disrupt. Like, many of those little kids will be their boss someday. So learning how to get feedback from people who are different from you is really important. And most of the time, kids are reading their writing out loud to their partner. So reading it isn't a hurdle. Knowing what good writing looks like isn't a hurdle. So just tend to what's happening and figure out, do I need to disrupt some ideas about who's good and bad at writing in this classroom, so that everyone knows in this room, we are all striving to be strong readers and writers. People know how I feel about Jason Reynolds. If you haven't watched, there's a 10-minute documentary about his life in schools. Yeah, Jason Reynolds teachers, he was in the low group forever. From elementary school through middle school and in high school, you'll never amount to anything. You're not a good writer. You're not smart. So we have to help kids recognize that, because you are struggling to write a personal narrative or an opinion piece on chocolate milk is not a label for the rest of your reading or writing career. You want to help kids disrupt that. So if you want to gather anecdotals on it, tell the kids, we're going to partner in these 3 different ways. Bend 1, pick your own partners. Bend 2, I get to pick partners. Bend 3, TBD, because I'm going to be paying attention to how partnerships go this unit. And, at morning meeting, I'll be looking for input, or you'll do a quick write, for homework one night. Talking about what you've learned about working with your partners. Really use it for some tiny little action research for yourself. How do you make partners that both build a community of writers and help writers grow? That's the work that we're doing. That's part of the work. And TC has great insights on it, so we'll dig into that in just a few minutes. Okay, so we're going to take a 5-minute break so that people can stretch, and then we're going to come back and do some professional reading. I'm going to plop the reading up so that folks can see it. Hang on. And I'm going to do a quick talk through about how to use all of these texts. But this idea of being great conferrers is deeply embedded into the workshop, and there's amazing insights in the professional text that we have. So we'll come back in 5, and I'll do a quick plow through what's in these readings, and we'll come back together. Before we get into professional reading time, a few people have asked, what about, where are these videos? How can we see this work in action? So if you are online, 2, you've got this link, LB Consultants for Mount Vernon. If you click on that link, it will take you to this folder. This folder has every PD, whether it's, you know, if you want to see what I did for getting started at Columbia last March, you can click on and see that. If you want to see the East PD, but it's all here. But at the very bottom of the page are 2 documents that aren't dropped into a folder. One is called Suggestions for Summer Writing. So last year, at the end of the year, there was some interest in how do we encourage kids to write over the summer. So I put together a quick one-pager on that. And then the second link says, links to Lisa Vahey demonstration teaching. So these are full lessons at East from last February. So you can watch me do a literary essay, how do you write about what you've read. You can watch me do a kindergarten mini lesson work time, you know, this is all mini lesson work time, share time, and then you can watch me get my butt kicked in the Bringing History to Life, which is just going, this teacher's got kids reading about the American Revolution, and kids are becoming experts on things. So when you click on this, the awesome team of tech folks, you can see the mini lesson is all here. Well, let's please have it work.
Or there's got to be a D in there somewhere, right? Does it begin with a D? Order. It's in
Yep, so we're talking about how to write words when you don't know how to write any, when you're
one line through this.
when you're editing your work, and then we start getting into, then I do conferring. I meet with kids.
I want to make a label about that
Oh,
umbrella.
and that's a super reluctant writer. I remember working with him.
Exactly.
So you can see what's happening in the classroom and what conferring looks like, and then we come back together on the rug to share at the end. And you can see what it looks like to have kindergartners who really don't think of themselves as writers sharing their work with each other, what that looks like. Oh, show me the booklets, show me this, show me that. So this was right here last February. So super important that you know that you can access this, and if during our work time today, that feels like the most important thing for you to do, then please pull up your computer and do it. So, palms down. Okay, so I'm going to leave us in this, say that one more time.
Access to this somewhere?
Say that one more
Do
time.
we have access to this somewhere?
Yes. Page, can I grab this? Page 2, at the bottom. See that link? LV Consultants for Mount Vernon. Every single PD I've ever done for you guys, and that Crystal's done, is in that folder. So you just go to the date. So if you go to that link and click on today, you'll be able to see all the handouts for today. So, and then if you click on that link, at the bottom of the page is a Google Doc with the 3 links to the videos. Okay, so I want to name the buckets of work that I'd like to encourage you to be digging into to be happening right now. The first is having a strong sense of where the units are. So if everybody could grab their if-then book for a minute. Grab your if-then book and turn to page Roman numeral 6, VI, for those who aren't experts on Roman numerals. That is a must read. That is the scope of the year for your grade level. So that's what Teachers College, why they organize the units this way, what they think kindergartners or 3rd graders or 5th graders might be most interested and invested in doing, how they're building independence over time. That is a must read. It's the vision of the year. These are our North Stars right here. Then inside every single spiral bound unit, so lots of you brought your whole units, but if you brought the next unit you're teaching, open that up and find the welcome to the unit. So grab a spiral bound unit and find the welcome to the unit. It's the very beginning. That is the vision for these 22 days. And you must read that. That's where they say, if your kids aren't good at sharing, you should try this. If your kids have never done workshop before, you might want to adjust this way. If you have lots of second language learners, think about doing this. You know, so that if-then introduction gives you the year. So that looks at what your kids are going to, you know, what they believe about 7-year-old writers. And then the welcome to the unit drops you into what are these 20 days about. And you must read these. You will be missing critical information. If you're an intervention specialist, this is the stuff you're supporting. If you're the classroom teacher, this is what can drive the parent note saying, hey, in writing, we're doing the following things. This is what we're thinking about this year as writers, and here's how we're doing it in this 6-week period. And then if you pull out your Writing Pathways book, not the big spiral one, the slim, well, it's not slim, it's the biggest book in your units. Each tab, and of course in the Writing Pathway books, the tabs aren't physical tabs, they're the gray tabs when you fold the book in half. Each tab has a genre. So if you are doing, if I can for a minute, your next genre, because people were bringing their next unit with them, is narrative. So you want to look at the narrative checklist for your grade level. That's the space that you want to dig into. You want to look at the narrative checklist, so you're like, okay, I know what narrative, I know what tool I'm using with my kids. So you'll see, what grade are you? So you want to find that narrative tab, you want to find the 4th grade checklist, and that's what you're moving your kids toward in this unit. So you want to tag that. So you're like, oh, this is the tool the kids will be using and that I'll be using to see how they're doing as writers.
So the opinion, it says personal is persuasive in the book, but in here, would that be the opinion?
Yes, exactly. Yep. Is there anyone in this room who isn't, and don't feel shy about this, just get your hand up so we can actually know. Is there anyone who's not online, besides the middle school folks, is there anyone not online with units of study yet? Everyone's registered on Heinemann. If you are not, you must go up to someone today and say, hey, can you help me get online with the units of study? Because in addition to the kit, you need the online resources as well in order to be able to teach the curriculum. You can't teach it without access to the online units, or the online resources. If you're an intervention specialist, you can get online with every grade level you support. If you're a librarian, you can get online with all units, K through 5, so you know where people are. It's not tricky to do, but you want to have someone help you do that. So, I really want to recommend that after folks read that, we step into the second set of bullets, which I know is hard to see. Building independence, being organized so you can confer. So I want you to get out a guide to the writing workshop. So pull that book out, a guide to the writing workshop. And a few folks asked me, where did the reading come from that we did today? And I'm just going to pull this out of my pocket. So it came from this little quick start guide, but the content in the quick start guide actually comes from the units. So in a guide to the writing workshop, if you're a primary teacher, I want you to turn to page 50. If you're K1, 2. And if you're intermediate, I want you to turn to page 52. And in this section, Teachers College walks you through how to build in an independent work time and how to have systems and structures and routines in place for conferring. So it's a short read But it's this powerful set of insights that's like, oh, whoa, this is good. Okay, what's the difference between, different kinds of structures that I can use to help create independence for kids? So these readings come right out of the chapter on management systems. So this is a whole chapter in the guidebook around managing strong writing workshop. So this chapter is really helpful. The pages that I've recommended are the pages on conferring. But you might want to pop ahead and pop back and read the pages on mini lessons and how to build independence and good work during mini lesson. And you may want to pop back or forward and read about systems and structures and routines for share time. Kinder and first grade folks, you might want to read this whole chapter because it's got incredible insights that really talk to, if your kids have never held a pencil before, here are some things to think about. If your kids have, all gone to preschool, here are some other things to think about. And last but not least, when you're feeling really like, okay, I've read all this stuff, I have workshop up and running, then inside a guide to writing workshop for both intermediate and primary, chapter 8 is specifically about conferring. That whole chapter in a guide is about conferring. Insights, advice, systems, routines, the steps of a conference. So it's very powerfully organized. It's a great professional read. So depending on where you're entering the work, hey, I'm not really deep in. I need to get a sense of what this whole year is going to be about, and what this unit is about. Then you want to start with the first bullets. Where am I going and where are my writers going? If you're like, I love to get set up, I want to get in the nuts and bolts of things, then you might want to read that being independent, being organized sections from the management system chapter. If you're like, boom, I'm ready to hit the ground running. I want to start conferring. I want to start maximizing that structure and routine, then you can go to the building your knowledge and practice section. In intermediate, and in primary, it's in chapter 8, and there's another chapter on it in the writing pathways book as well, chapter 11. It could be that you just want to spend a minute tabbing all of these things, skimming them quickly, and deciding what's the best spot for you to read next. So here's how I'm going to set up this time. We're going to spend about 20 minutes just reading. So pick what you want to read, dig in. For 20 minutes, we'll read. Then, in about 10 minutes, we'll shift gears so that there can be noise. So you can talk to someone, you can, pull up against the table with someone, you can watch a video in those, you'll have time to watch a mini lesson in that time. But for many folks, just time to get to read it. You do not have to stay here. You can move to the stage, you can get out of the sun, you can go sit on the floor, you can, sit on the stairs. But for the next 20 minutes, it's a quiet work time. Really focused on reading the awesome stuff that's in the units of study that many folks haven't had time and opportunity to read yet. Like, the stuff is here, you just need to access it. So multiple entry points. For anyone who's like, I'm deeply implementing, I want to go deeper, I did create a set of readings online from my favorite blogs, but there's enough stuff here, but just so that you know, you'll have access to it, it's there. It's just 6 really great blog posts on the role of conferring. But I want each of us to know what's here, tag up each of these things. You're like, holy cow, how have I never read the scope and sequence of my year? I should do that. And then have the space to read independently. Move to where you want to move. Sit in a space that you want to sit in so that you're comfortable and engaged. And then when the timer goes off after 20, we'll have maybe 10 to 12 minutes of louder but productive work time so that folks can move around and talk and process and feel like, okay, I really got to not just read, but to process my work as well. These are kindergartners who've never really done writing workshop. They don't even have a rug area in their classroom, so they're sort of in a sense that like you gather somewhere for a mini lesson is a very new concept for them.
kindergarten only, without good access to preschool. So you'll see me a few times I talk to teachers. There's about 40 teachers on the edge of the room. At some point you'll see them, and then I'm with the kids at the rug. Really convincing them that they can write a how-to book, no matter what. So this is the first session, mini lesson 1, from Kinder How To. Because this curriculum is a systematic approach. So even if they haven't had the units, I was just talking to second grade people, you're sort of like, and someone from third grade is like, hey, it says in the book if they haven't done X, try doing Y first. So this idea that we're using this language, no matter what, whether I think they can do it, I'm not stopping to teach them what a narrative is, because the lesson is a kindergarten lesson on how to write a how-to book. So I'm going to really quickly, so I moved out of it, know my teaching point. Today I'm going to teach you how to write a how-to book. That's the teaching point. Everything is going to be surrounded on that. They don't need to leave the rug knowing what a narrative is and how it's different than a how-to. Can you make it louder? No, it's as loud. Can I make it louder anywhere else?
I don't know.
Yeah, I turned all the volumes up that I knew how to turn up. I'm really sorry. And I'm so darn loud anyway when I teach. I'm sorry that it's not louder. Everyone was singing to me very loudly. And
It was the best time. Does anyone know what those are? What are they? Turn to the person next to you and say, those are. Tell someone what they are. Turn to the person next to you. Say it to someone next to you. Yeah, those are speech bubbles. So this is a true story of a small moment. Friends, that's not my friend. My turn, your turn. How to write it. How to write it. Sorry, birthday party story. You have to go away. Today we're doing books that give directions or teach something. Read my how-to book. Ready? Get out a big bowl and all the ingredients and of course the chocolate chips. Can you already guess what I'm teaching you? How to? Okay, let me go to page 1, page 2. Use a spoon to drop the dough on the pan. Bake in the oven. Be careful, it's hot. That's something I could add. That's a detail.
Kid said, how many minutes?
That's such a great idea. I could get my pen and add that. That's a how-to. You guys are smart. Page 1, page 2, page 3. Pour a glass of milk and eat your cookie. So good. What is this? What is this? Cookie. Who is this? You. Yeah, it's not perfect. I just did my best for it. Pictures and words going together. This is a how-to book. It's 3 pages long. What's the name of my story? What should I call it? How to what? Yes, how to make cookies. This isn't how to play soccer. This isn't how to make a snowman. This is not how to ski. This isn't how to be a good brother. This is how to make cookies. I want you to turn to the person next to you and really look at them and say, what did you notice about my book? I want you to say, what did you notice? And then the other person should answer. Talk to the person next to you about what you noticed, okay? I noticed. What did you notice about my book?
I want to stop this again for a second so you can see they don't know, like, I'm not explaining every last thing of like, here's how to do turn and talk, blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, we're going to talk, turn to the partner, give them a high five. Now say, one person says this thing and one person says the next thing. Because my job is to keep this mini lesson mini and to get them off the rug in 10 to 12 minutes, ready to be like, I can totally write a how-to book. Like that's the energy. So just turn and talk. Now you guys for a minute, what are you noticing about the video and what questions does it raise for you? What's confusing or what's not confusing at all? So very quick turn and talk by us for a minute. So I pop in and try and get some kids to tell me what they notice. As the sun sets, or as the sun sets or goes higher, depending on what it is, you can see all the teachers in the background. And the kids really kind of like, what is this person doing here, coming all the way back here in the rug with us? Which is an interesting piece of how you set up your mini lessons, wanting to be able to lean in and listen to what kids are saying. Do they move? Do you move? Do you change the kids who are in the front row? Or do you sometimes go out into the crowd to make those really effective? Oh, no sound. Oh, no, you talked twice.
Yes, I noticed. Start with I noticed. Yep. There's a speech bubble in my how-to book. Yes, I noticed. Oh, that's a bear in my birthday book. That's not my how-to book. This is my.
I'm going to stop this for a second. So our group talked about this. This kid notices something about the narrative, right? So when we talked about how this lesson starts by saying, show the kids a narrative and tell them you're not writing a narrative today. I'm clarifying that for you. You're not doing this. So this kid is like, turn and talk about something you noticed about the how-to, and this kid's like, I noticed something like that you like your presents or something like that. Now I'm like, that's not what we're writing today. And I try and say it with like grace and energy instead of frustration.
How to look. I wasn't doing cake in my how-to. I was doing cookies in my how-to book. Do you like cheesecake? You do. Hang on one second. Do you know how to make cheesecake? Does anyone here know how to cook anything?
Does anyone know how to cook anything?
Hands down. Does anyone here know how to play a sport? Hands down. Does anyone here know how to play an instrument? Okay, hands down. Does anyone here know how to get dressed? Hands down. Does anyone here know how to school? Okay, hands down. Does anyone here know how to sing? Hands down. I mean, you guys are experts on so many things.
So this is the pivot.
Now, it's your job to write a it's your job to write a how-to book. Two hands on your heart. It's my job to write a how-to book. They got your brain. What are you going to write about? Don't say a word. Think. I'm going to write about.
Here I am double checking while they think, what am I supposed to be doing in this mini lesson?
Hands down. Who has an idea what they're going to write? Turn to the person next to you and say, I'm going to write a book about how to blah, 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 and tell your partner. Go.
So this is really hard because the old me would have been like, who knows what they're going to write about? Everyone's hand goes up and I'm like, what are you going to write about? What are you going to write about? What are you going to write about? And then all of a sudden my mini lesson isn't mini and only 9 kids have talked and 10 kids have listened, or 20 kids, whatever your number is. So this is where you're like, turn and talk to your partner and tell them right now what you're going to write about. So it keeps my mini, so that instead of listening to 9 kids, everybody talks. And everybody is like, I'm going to write about this, I'm going to write about that. And you'll listen to me
Talk. Tell the person.
narrate over them in a second.
What? Go to a new chapter.
Who's going to write about?
They're all at once. Did you do this?
I had some kids write about Pokemon Go last week. A few kids, hands down. Okay, hands down. I'm just wondering, it's your decision. How to take care of a baby. Hands down, friends. Ooh. Friends. Good writers think about what they're writing. We're not writing stories today. We're writing how-to books. We're giving directions. You're going to use pictures and words. If the words are tricky, don't stress out. Say it slow and write it down. And put a lot of detail in your pictures. There's no stressing out in writing. There's no stressing out at all. If the words are tricky, say it slow and write down what you hear. I'll come around and help, or you can do it later. Just make sure you're writing a how-to book. 2 fingers to the brain. Today, I'm writing a how-to book. Now you say it. Today, I'm writing a how-to book. Hang on. Everyone say what they're writing about. Today, I'm writing a how-to book about football, gymnastics, cookies, soccer. You guys are excellent. Okay, I'm totally psyched.
watch the last few minutes of it at your leisure, because this is dropped into the link. Just one more quick turn and talk using that stem. I'm confused, I noticed, I'm wondering, I liked, any of those I statements about what you noticed from this. So just a very quick turn and talk at your table.
Lesson is fast-paced. There's one per day. They go off and write. This is their first day. Kindergarten, I think this is January or so. So I might have to write for 8 minutes. And then when the timer goes off and kids are like, what? Say like, okay, do you think we can go 2 more minutes of writing? You know, we're building that stamina. We always end with a share, even when kids are just getting started in this work. Mini lesson, work time, share time. Our work during work time is conferring. And when we set up systems and structures and routines for independent work, just as we read today in the guide books or in the pathways books or in having a vision for the teaching, then it helps set kids up for success so that we can then work with individual writers more succinctly, more purposefully, more accurately. Lots of video resources if you go to the Mount Vernon link. But the very last thing you need to do, and we'll just wrap up individually, is if you go to this link, bit.ly, MVOCT18, that will take you to the exit ticket from today. You can do it on your phone, you can do it on a device. It's also on page 2 of your handout. You need to put the M and the V and the O all need to be capitalized for the bit.ly link to work. So one more time, feedback is what drives our session. So when people are like, more on conferring, more on record keeping, more video, that's what helps us put these things together for folks. So you really crave your constructive feedback. I already told principals when I arrived at 8, and Eric knows, really one of our most important next steps is we've done a lot of good gathering. Now it's time for support to happen closer to classrooms. I would love to see you come teach in my kindergarten classroom. I would love to come see how do you do this 4th grade history unit. It's hard when kids haven't had it before. So thinking about how we move from as awesome as this gathering space is, really gathering in schools. And, you guys being the 40 people around the room to watch that mini lesson and figuring out what that looks like. So thank you for your good time and attention and energy. I'll leave books out. If you came up and borrowed stuff, please make sure you come bring it back up to the front of the room. And make sure your questions and comments end up on those exit tickets. We really value them. We share them back with principals, with district folks, and your questions should be driving how we move forward. So thanks a ton.